Hey everybody, it's Alison Heikkila. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited because I have right here the July 2023 Hero Arts Classic Kit. This is from their My Monthly Hero program. I'm not part of the monthly subscription, but sometimes I cannot resist getting these products. And I was very lucky to have recently won a gift certificate from Hero Arts during one of their Facebook Lives, and I purchased the My Monthly Hero for July, and I also got this fantastic die. I have had my eye on this die since it first came out. It's called the Mushroom Forest Fancy Die, and it works perfectly with the mushroom and fern dies that I have from them that came out at I guess the same time that this die came out. So and I've used that a few times, and I can't wait to use them together, and this goes perfectly with this kit. So if you haven't seen this kit, this is the card that it comes with, and I'm going to tell you right now, I love the whole kit, but the clincher is this die right here. It is so cool. It makes a super rad, like, tree scene that's perfect for shaker cards, as you can see in this example, and I just fell in love with it. I'm like, this has to be mine. It has to be. So, oops, I forgot the reactive ink. This reactive ink comes with it, this ombre. I don't know if it says, it's called Spring Day. Very nice. Very nice. Love that. So I'm excited to use it. This just came yesterday, so I haven't even opened it up yet. This is the stamp set. Let me show you what it looks like with some cardstock behind it so you can see. Oh, it's so pretty. I love these wildflowers. There's a little cricket here. There are some dandelion blossoms floating away. It's just so pretty. There's a butterfly, a little snail. It's just magical and pretty, and I really like the sentiments, and just the whole thing is fantastic. And then there is this rubber stamp. It's like a linen, but it has this super subtle chevron, and if you know me, I love me some chevron, so that's going to be really fun to work with. I can see stamping this on top of a gel press print. It's going to be great. And then these are the dies. So this is the tree die. It's one piece. It came all connected, and I thought I'd take a moment to show you the way that I like to separate dies. So originally, it was like this, right? And then these little pieces of grass were in here. Whoops. Like so, right? And I had to cut them apart. So I have, these are jeweler's cutters. They just have a flat top to them, and you can see that, well, I got a little bit of metal shavings from cutting the trees apart, but you can't see through them, okay? And that's good. If you were able to see like light through them or see my hand because there were gaps here, that means that your cutters are not great, or they've been used a lot and you might need to replace them. But because this pair doesn't have any gaps, that means that I know that I will get a nice flush cut and I won't have to work too hard. So I have this metal bowl. This costs only a couple of dollars. You can get it at Harbor Freight. You can probably get it like Home Depot and Lowe's. I don't know, I never looked there, but I found this one at Harbor Freight. We've also seen them at Micro Center, and it's a magnetic bowl. If you listen to this, do you hear that? My desk has metal legs, so I just keep this attached to the legs of my desk, and I never lose it that way. So what I do is I take my snips, and you can see that one side is flush and one side cuts in, right? So I'm going to take the flush side and put it as close as possible to one of the dies without cutting the die, and then this can just fall off. These actually happen to be magnetic too, so sometimes the dies will stick to it because it is, see, it's magnetic, so I have double magnets happening, but then I don't lose any of my pieces. And then with this extra piece here, this was from where it was attached to the trees, I'm just going to go in again with the flush part, right? Not the part that dips in, but the flat part. And I'm going to just cut as close as possible to the die itself. And then I can just remove that little piece and sweep them all into my garbage later. So I'm not going to go through all of them. That's kind of the way I do it. But see, it keeps everything nice in here and nothing falls out. It's like magic. All right, so let's make a card. So we're going to use this guy, like I said. And I don't have a total plan, we're working on the fly here. I like to do that, and I decided to skip the voiceover this time. So I have some Shizen, I'm not sure, professional grade black watercolor paper. You can get this from Blick. I'll be sure to have links to everything in the comment section, not in the comments, in the description box below. I like this because it's recycled. I also like it because it's a nice rich black. It's more of a blue black, and it has a lovely texture. This is actually the smooth one. I have one that's rough, and there's even more texture on it. It's soft and pliable, and I really like working with it. So we're going to use that for our tree. So first thing I'm going to do is just trim this down to be 4 by 5 1/4. So we're going to do 4 by 5 1/4. Okay. And now I'm going to take this off screen to just cut this out with my die cut machine. Okay, so I die cut this out, and I will say that because this is such thick paper, it's a good idea to try and run it through your die cut machine a couple of times. But look at how pretty that is. I mean, just the way it is here is really cool. I've got this part from the inside here that I can use as scrap if I need to, and I decided we're going to play with some metallic watercolors. These are my FineTec Pearlescent colors. I've got some swatches here. These are really nicer on black or dark cardstock as opposed to white, although some of the colors look great on white. You can see these gold here, the pearl. Some of them are not my favorite on white. They're much more effective on black, but we're going to use probably this guy here and this guy here. I don't know. We'll see what else. Maybe we'll make a brown. I don't know. So let's play with that. And I've got a couple of my Princeton snap brushes here. These are my favorite watercolor brushes. I love these guys. This is a 10. This is my 4. And then this is my 6. You can see the sizes there. So we'll probably start with the 6 and see if we need to go up or down. I think that the 6 is probably my most used size because it's in between. I do want to get the rest of the collection because they are really nice, thirsty brushes, which I love. They hold a lot of water, they hold a lot of color. So we're not going to go crazy. I'm going to zoom in for you. We're going to keep things kind of simple, but looking pretty cool. I'm just kind of swirling this color around. We're going to have to go back and forth into the water quite a bit just to make sure that the color is nice and wet and our brush is nice and wet. I chose this color to start with because this one sort of changes color. It shifts. So sometimes it looks a little brown or has a pink tone to it, and other times it looks very green, depending on how the light hits it or what kind of light that you're in. So I thought that this would be a fun one to use on this die cut. I'll probably add a little bit of the true green as well, but we'll see. So you can see I'm just swirling it in, not going crazy. We're going to go down a little bit here. Maybe I'll use the regular green on the foliage that's down here as opposed to in the tree. That might look good. Add some down here because those look like branches. And I'm working on top of a piece of white cardstock, excuse me, just so that you can see what I'm doing, because my mat is obviously black and you won't really be able to see that very well. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit more over here. Can you see that shift? See right here how it looks kind of brown sometimes, but then it switches in the light. So cool. Hopefully when I take pictures at the end of this for my final card, you'll be able to see the shift a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to go into the green. This is like a really nice Colombian emerald sort of green. And I thought it would look really cool to use these watercolors on the black. It's kind of like a nighttime scene, but you can see a little bit of color. Let's mix this a little bit. Let's see if we can get some mixing happening here. I don't usually mix them. I usually use them straight, but let's just play for a minute. That's a nice color. It's kind of like an olive green. This way it's different from the area over here. Gives us some more bits of interest, right? That looks cool. Just going to add a little bit here just to kind of connect those areas. Nice. All right. So now we're going to let that dry. And I think maybe we will... Do I want to add more to this? Do I want to add some color? I think I might just... You know what? How about this? Let's try this. Let's take some orange and mix it with this green that we have here and try to get like a nice... Maybe we'll add some blue to it. Blue and orange are opposite on the color wheel. So when you mix them together, you get brown. That's a good brown. Look at that. And then we can just clean this. You can't see it. Sorry about that. I thought you were able to see that. So I mixed my orange and my blue together, and I got this brown. See that? I'm going to use that on the bark. So like I was saying, when you mix opposing colors on the color wheel together, you get brown. They're also great to help each other pop. So when you put purple next to yellow, for example, because they're opposite on the color wheel, they make each other pop. They stand out. When you mix them, you get a brown. So since there's no brown in this set, we can make our own by mixing colors that are opposite each other. This is going to look cool. I don't think that I want it to be super thick and super heavy because I want that black to show through a bit, but we can just kind of carefully just do that. How's that? I think that's neat. It's subtle, but I wanted it to be subtle, so that's cool. Okay, I'm gonna wipe my brush off here. Paper towel. Okay, so now we have, let me move this off to the side for a minute. We have these stamps, and that looks really pretty behind it, but I'm not sure if that's the look that I'm going for today. I don't know. I feel like I might... Do I want to turn it into a shaker card? Probably, because, you know, I do shakers so often. I like this Explore Nature. Should we do a shaker, guys? I think so. I feel like we need something happening down here. So why don't we mix a little bit more color? I'm going to zoom out again. Okay. Just a bit. Let us... I'm going to take that blue again. Cleaning it off while I'm picking up some of that color. That's kind of a nice gray that we have going. It's a little blue when it gets onto the page. So we're going to go into the orange. And then we're going to go into this gold, I think, and warm it up a little bit. Here we go. Let's do that. And I'm just kind of adding a ground. And this is just playing, you know. As I said at the beginning, I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go. I knew that I wanted to use the black watercolor paper because I needed to start with something in order to film this video for you guys. But I didn't want to plan too much. That looks cool. And it's just a matter of having a good time with whatever you're doing. A little bit more over here. There we go. Okay. I'm a big fan of Bob Ross and playing and happy accidents and all of that good stuff. So if you subscribe to that kind of idea as well, then I hope that you take some time to play as well, because playing is so much fun. You get more accomplished, I feel like, if you're just playing. Just cleaning off my brush. I added some anti-static powder to my piece here because we're going to stamp that Explore Nature. I usually don't add a sentiment until the end, but I think that that's going to work really well for this particular card. And the rest of this is still pretty wet, but since I'm only going to be adding embossing powder right here, I'm not concerned. and as I melt my embossing powder, that'll help the rest of this dry too. So I have some VersaMark ink, which is a nice sticky ink. It's the best thing that I've found to use for embossing images, and we're just free stamping. I could have put this in my Misty or other stamping type platform, but we're just doing a simple little sentiment. And now I'm going to just clean this off. I don't like to ever leave ink on my stamps, especially VersaMark, because it is sticky, and then it gets like fuzzies and like cat hair and other dog hair, other things on it. So I do try to always clean them off before I put them back on their carrier sheet. Okay, what color do we want to use? Let's take a look. I think we're going to use this copper color from Imagine. I have a sample right here. It's taped down, so it looks a little bit, it's not as shiny just because there's scotch tape on top, but I think that that's going to be a really nice color to go with our mystical looking trees that we have going on. And it's going to look pretty dull at first until we grab our embossing gun and heat it up. So now I'm going to just get this color, this powder, excuse me, back in here. Okay. Let me grab my gun. We're going to make a little bit of noise. We have to let that heat up for a moment before we bring it to our watercolor paper. And you'll see it shift. Check that out. That is really pretty. I think that's a good color for what we have going on here. And if we want, we can heat up the rest of this. So I'm going to do that off screen, just so that it's dry. Okay guys, we're doing it. We're going to make a shaker card. I have the Blood Magic Sparkle Blend from Doodles Paper Playground. Unfortunately, Doodles Paper Playground is no longer in business, but if you did purchase things from them in the past, maybe you have this particular sparkle blend. It's super vampy and cool, and you know, we're just going to make an Alison card here. It's going to be dark and creepy and weird and also sparkly and fabulous. So that's what we're doing. And I have a piece of packaging from a stamp set that I just kind of pulled apart, and we're going to use this for our acetate to keep our sparkly bits from falling out. Now, you could cut this die cut image several times from cardstock and just stack them up and glue them that way for your walls, but we're going to use foam tape. And the reason for that is, if you were to stack this several times, unless you removed, you know, these inner trees, your sparkly bits are not going to be able to get through them, right? So you'd have all of these different wells, and your shaker bits wouldn't go throughout the entire background freely. So instead of doing it that way, which I sometimes do, sometimes I like to just cut many of the same thing. For this scenario, since there's so many extra things, I think it's a little easier and more effective, I should say, as a shaker card goes, to just use some foam tape. So I have black foam tape from Thermoweb, and I have my Tear It tape from Imagine. So we're going to use that first to put our acetate over here on our panel, and then I will use the I need my piece of paper so that we can see what we're doing, and then I'll use the foam tape to give us some lift so that our sparkly bits will have plenty of places to go, and it won't be stuck like in between the tree branches and things like that. So I love this tape because it's nice and strong. It holds acetate really well. I don't personally love to use wet adhesive for acetate. I find A, it takes way too long to dry, and B, it doesn't always stick well. I find that my acetate kind of peels apart after a short amount of time, and I don't like that. So I'm just going to go like this. We could even add some up here, but it's not really necessary. As long as we have this perimeter done, we're good to go. I'm just removing the release paper, and you can see that this stuff comes off really nicely. Of course, now I'm having a problem with it, but that's okay. It'll come off. There we go. Just had to grab the right area. And now we're going to attach the acetate that is from an old stamp set, or maybe a new stamp set. It's from a stamp set. We're just recycling, guys. And we need to make sure that we get it on there properly. There we go. Okay, I'm going to cut off this extra stuff and then we'll add some foam tape. Okay, so we have our acetate on there. You can see it kind of reflecting. Now we need to add our foam tape, which can be a little tedious because you need to make sure that you really secure your ends completely so that none of your shaker bits fall out. You have to make sure that you have a really good seal going around your entire border. Otherwise, things can get messy. And I'm just making sure that none of my foam tape is showing through the trees. And I can see that there could be a little bit peeking through, so I'm just going to pull that up and trim this down. I'm using very old Teflon coated scissors, but as you can see there's a lot of silver showing on there, and that means that the coating is coming off. So it does take a moment to kind of trim this down, but this stuff sticks really well once you have it in place. So I'm just kind of working it a little bit, making sure that I get everything cut right across, and then I can finish making my little foam box, right? Because we're making like a little box for the shaker bits to sit in. And I should really just get another pair of these scissors because I love them, because then I wouldn't struggle so much. But I wanted you guys to see that if this happens to you, it's okay. You can just kind of work it out and then everything will stick just fine. Okay, so I'm going to start from the side since I've cut this down. Just like so. And now I'll cut this off. Save that over here. Just attaching it to my little roll. And now I'm going to snug this up. I know it's a little tricky to see because it's black on black, but I will hold it up to the camera in a moment. Do this here, push that down, cut it off at the top, and now we'll just snug it up again, and hopefully we have enough to go across. And we do, look at that. That was a good guess. I was just kind of estimating how much I needed. That worked out pretty well. Okay, pushing that down. So now we have a nice complete square so our shaker bits won't fall out. Okay, and I'm going to just add a little bit more down here just so that it's nice and secure and even. Put a piece here. And then another one in the middle, like so. Okay. Now what we can do is fill our well with our sparkly stuff. I'm going to just dump this into my little skull tray that I got from Twiddler's Nook, just making sure that there's nothing in here that I don't want. This works completely. Sometimes you'll find sequin mixes that have like little clay bits that are like, you know, a watermelon or a skull or an alien head or whatever. And this particular one doesn't have any of that, so I don't really need to take anything out. What we do need though, before I do this part, is I need to trim the paper that I'm going to use to seal off this backing, because I don't tend to attach this directly to my card base because I want to be able to manipulate things if I need to, and I just want to seal it. I want to get it sealed so that my sparkly bits don't fall out. So I 90% of the time will have some type of backing paper here before I add it to my card base. So I've chosen, check this out you guys, it's so sparkly. It's really old. It's from the paper company called Licorice Diamond. I don't even know if this company still exists. I know that Die Cuts with a View used to have some sparkly cardstock as well, but we're gonna use this one because look, it's like a really beautiful night sky. And I didn't attach my acetate super well. I kind of have a little bit of a crinkle up here, but it was too late once I adhered it because I was looking through my camera when I was putting it on as opposed to looking right at my desk. So I have a little bit of a crinkle, but it'll be fine. We'll get through it together. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this down. I'm gonna try not to spill my sparklies. And I should really remove this piece of foam tape, right? Let's just cut it with my paper trimmer. That'll just be easier, right? Okay. Get that in here. Cutting this down. Making sure it fits. And it does. Nice. We don't need to go across the whole thing. I tend to be stingy with my specialty paper because, you know, there's a finite amount of it, right? So I want to use it, but I also don't want to be wasteful. There's plenty of pieces here that I can use for something. You can see how nicely it die cuts. So I'll hang on to that for another time. And that's perfect. See, it's going to fit right there. It'll seal my whole window perfectly, and then we can move on. Okay, so now we're just going to add the good stuff. I feel like I need some black in here besides all of this deep red. Let's see what I have. I have some card bling that I got with my stencils from A Colorful Life Designs. So I'm going to add some of that. We have some matte black confetti. These are the ones that don't have holes in them. And then I have some like peacock / oil slick / iris colored that we're going to add to. Just a few of those. I might add some more of those matte blacks. There's some matte black in here too. That's nice. Just to kind of fill it in a little bit. There we go. This is going to be a really full shaker. I don't tend to put this much stuff in my shakers, but we're having fun, right? Okay. That's going to look fab. I really like this one, so we're going to make sure that's in there. Okay, it's got to be separated. There's 2 here, and I just lost a star. That's okay. All right, star is in there. Now we just have to remove our release paper, and then we're going to attach our sparkly backing to it, and then we can finish off the card. The release paper comes off really nicely where you've cut. It just comes off a little bit easier because you've kind of broken the seal with your scissor. Comes off a little bit easier that way. Okay. I'm going to remove this one too, partially because it did the glittery cardstock that we're putting on top is going to kind of go on top of it a little bit. I don't want to expose it completely just yet. Now we're going to apply this, making sure that we get a nice complete seal. I'm going to lay this back down just so that I have a place to push. There's still some of that adhesive showing from the foam tape, so I don't want to touch that too much if I can help it. Ready? Check that out. Oh, it's so cool. I love this. And you can see how nicely everything moves. And I love the sound. I love the sound it makes. Okay, I'm going to keep this flipped over because, again, some of that adhesive is exposed, and I don't want it to get anywhere but on my card base. So I'm going to grab my card base. All right, so I have a black card base, and I don't know what I did before when I was cutting this, but I didn't cut it properly. It's not 4 by 5 1/4. So I goofed on that, which is not a big deal. It's just going to go to the edges on either side, like where my thumbs are. But at the top and the bottom, you can see some of the card base. So we're going to just make it look a little fancy. So I have sheer shimmer spritz in copper, and we just need to shake this up, and we're going to apply it with our watercolor brush. Okay, this is all pretty much shook. There's little atomizer balls in there, and makes the mica powder that's in there kind of go in through the rest of the liquid. So I'm going to just unscrew the cap here. And I'm going to dip my size 10 just to kind of save some time and effort, and just brush right across the top. And I'm using this as opposed to the FineTec paints because I really wanted to highlight the copper that we use for the embossing powder, and I don't have a color like this in that set, so that's why I opted to go with this as opposed to the FineTecs. But you can see that this has a really pretty shimmery effect too, just like those pearlescent watercolors. And I tend to use the sheer shimmer spritz in this manner more than even spraying it. I like to just apply it with a brush and, you know, have some control over it. I do splatter it sometimes or spritz it, but more often than not, I'll do it this way. So I'm going to just heat this up so that it's ready to go. Okay, this is all dry, and you can see how nicely it coordinates with that. So now we just have to adhere this to our base, and then we're done. So do you prefer real-time videos like this, or do you prefer when they are sped up? I mean, I feel like sometimes it's good for sped up videos because sometimes you just don't need to see all the things in real time. But I think that for shaker cards and sometimes with certain techniques, it's a little bit better to have things done in real time. And sometimes I just prefer to not do a voiceover and do it this way. I'm trying to line this up. Okay. And you can see that copper just sort of poking through the top and the bottom. Isn't that pretty? It just kind of accentuates our sentiment there. And any of this extra powder you can just rub off with your finger or just use a brush. So that is our card for today, everybody. Kind of creepy and mysterious, but very cool. Inviting you into the forest. But obviously, if you're going into a forest, be careful. Like, if it's at night. And don't trespass. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's something that you'd like to see as far as shaker cards go or anything else. I will see you guys all very, very soon. Be well. Stay safe. Peace out.